we are going to be walking through a framework that Sean and I have used I've used for my entire career when it comes to trying to train reps up on cold calling. Sean and I had worked on this together over the last probably 5, 7 years now. How long have we known each other? 5 years, 4 or 5 years? Or
Yeah,
seven's
I
too
think we're
long.
just going on 5 years that we've intimately known each other, that we've actually worked together and known each other. Yeah.
Something like that. So we use this in our practice, and when I mean practice, so Sean and I worked together at the Sales Developers, which was my company a few companies back, outsourced sales development as a service. So you can imagine there we're consistently working on different types of campaigns, targeting different industries, targeting different segments, and trying to rapidly wrap reps. The other unique experience with that was that our reps would actually work multiple companies throughout their day. So one rep might be selling for two, three, sometimes four different customers or four different what we'd call campaigns, which is a target and a message. And so today we wanted to walk through this role play framework that Sean and I have worked on for quite some time. So just give you a little bit of background on how it works. We're going to then demo what that looks like, where I will grill Sean, and then we're going to bring in some volunteers on stage to do this live. So we've got potentially four. We'll see if we have the time to get through everybody today. But hopefully, at the end of the show today, we're going to have an opportunity to give you a few things. One, a framework that you can take and put into action right away, help you almost like singing chorus for the choir, warm up before you get on stage. So it's rapid recessions, kind of shake out the cobwebs. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you're going to get a framework you can use today. The second is something that allows you as a rep to just get a lot more comfortable with your message without necessarily having the live conversations. So that's the goal today. We think about this in a very different way. Most often, Sean and I, or the teams that we're working with, will be doing this with live cold calling. So we won't be doing the live cold calling portion of this today, but we will share the role play scenario. So Sean, over to you. Introduce yourself quickly to the group, and if you can walk through the framework, then let's get right into the practice, and we'll bring our first volunteer on stage.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder over at 5 by Noon and the soon to be released iNeverAnswer.com. Been working with Ryan for years. We don't need to cover that. So we are, the way that I would frame it up is that we are constantly distilling down, in discovering the best formulas for increasing growth and revenue at the top of the funnel, or meetings and awareness and demand. And this is just another way that we've come up with to make this process a lot easier for reps. And I put this deck together to kind of help us understand exactly what's going on here and clear the mud, clear the stage for what's happening. And I just want to start out with, there's a really big difference between our top of funnel interruptive calls and, let's say, our discovery calls. And that's why I clearly at the top here made the title of our deck here, in kind of the spirit of what we're doing, role play versus rehearsal, the how to warm up workshop. And basically what I'm saying here is there's a big difference between role play and rehearsal. We'll talk about that real quick, and then we'll get straight to the actual framework, and then there's just a little wrap up at the end here. So let's talk just real quick about role play versus rehearsal and kind of level set here. And the whole point is that reps should be confident, not disheartened, right? So when we think about role play, we actually think about tripping up reps, trying to say, hey, you should have done this, you should have done that, you shouldn't have said this, you should have said this instead. So what we did is we came up with this rehearsal framework, so that reps can practice what they're doing and actually build their confidence, their mood, their mindset. So one of the big distinctions here, again, is always the difference between top of funnel interruptive calling and what we call, established rapport. In other words, if I'm calling up someone to interrupt them, my communication style is a little bit different than, what it would be if they've agreed to a meeting and so on. Two entirely different things. So really what I'm trying to do is be as curious as possible, as confident, know my framework, understand the questions that I want to ask. And the reality of the interruptive call to, to help people be most confident is it doesn't matter if they actually take the call or not, and that's really the beauty of being really good at the top of the funnel. It doesn't matter if someone takes a meeting with us or not. There's somebody else right behind it that we can talk to try to get a meeting. So we're not necessarily going to role play and try to trip up reps and tell them you should have done this, you should have done that. We're actually going to spend our time practicing the script, practicing our tone, which gets us into the emotional state to use our voice, our tone, our pace, our mindset, our mood, and everything to be optimistic about taking that next call. And practice versus role playing simply leads to, eliminating that environment of inspection and reprimand, and really, really enhances the opportunity for learning and optimization. So the framework is basically a start, stop, reset framework. And this is all about practicing and rehearsing, not role playing. We're not trying to trip you up. We're not trying to get in your head and say you should have done this, because ultimately that leads to a rep getting on the phone and having all these different paths in their head. Oh, I should have said this. I should have said this. And they're stuck. They don't know what to do instead of just being confident and ready to go. So let's take a look at the actual stop, start framework, or stop, start, reset framework.
One
And
second.
we'll actually,
One second before you go. So go back real quick, Shawn, because I want to make sure this is really clear as I distill and break down what he said. What
yeah.
we're doing here in rehearsal is trying to nail our framework. We're not trying to change the framework from what's there. And the framework should be seen as like a funnel, right? Just like you have stage definitions and exit criteria as you go through your sales opportunities. If you're a full cycle rep, you may know that you start with an intro or discovery call, then you move into the demo, then you move into the proposal, then you move into the negotiation and close. There's stage definitions and exit criteria, and you generally have an idea of what's being said in each of those stages and what's needed next to get to that next stage. Um, when we bring it into the top of the funnel, none of that really exists for a lot of folks. The first version of that helps people understand stage definition and criteria is from just where people are at. That's buckets, right? That's the place where you can bring your data through. But what this is, your framework, your messaging framework, a lot of other people like to call them scripts. Doesn't really matter. That's your stage definition and exit criteria that allows you to know where you're at in the conversation. And that's what we want to rehearse and practice, so we're very confident in each of those sections and we know how to progress. The difference between cold calling and a messaging framework versus like a sales process, although sometimes the sales process can get a little bit messy, is it's not linear. While we look at it in kind of a visualization as somewhat of a funnel, it can go off in forks and stuff like that. So that's what kind of complicates things. And general role plays try to give you forks that likely don't exist. What we're going to show you is how to actually rehearse and practice the scenarios, the common scenarios that actually exist, so that you get that confidence up. So I just wanted to make sure that was super clear.
Yeah, that was great. And then I think there's the other bullet underneath know your framework that's really important, is to simply work on one section at a time. And for example, if you're onboarding a new rep and you have your script and your framework, it's pointed at the right persona, it's styled in, it's producing. What you want to do is have your rep know the framework, the opening. Are they asking a question for awareness, what the pitch might be, what the close would be, but only work on one section at a time. So when you're onboarding a rep, you might just work through the opening. And that way you can say, hey, great job on the opening. Let's move to the second part. And you might do that one week, the first week, the opening, the second week, the awareness and the pitch, and the third week, the close. And at the end of 3 or 4 weeks, you should have an onboarded rep who's just cranking away because your process is sound. Let's take a look at the framework, the next slide here. Okay, so the start, stop, reset framework. As simple as it sounds, let's talk about it for a second. Again, we're talking about rehearsal. So the simple way that it works is that the person who's receiving the call or the person who's making the call can start the rehearsal by saying ring ring. The actual prospect pretends like they're receiving a call. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and try it? Ring ring.
Hey, this is Ryan.
Hey Ryan, this is Shawn over at Phone Ready Leads, and you're not expecting my call today. So that's how you would start it. Just your basic, like you're making a phone call. I'm going to do my introduction, and I just put a couple of notes in here. The same thing I said a second ago. Focus on one section, exercise at a time. So we'll focus on opening, or maybe we'll ask the reps which section of their script they want to work on. But I think for the most part, we can start for opening so that we can just get the model down correctly here today. Exercise begins with the caller, ring, ring. And we really want to focus on exactly how he would sound. So it's okay to slow down, check your tone, check your pitch, get your pace ready for your call. And then the stop. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get repetitions in, right? We're trying to get repetitions of the opening in. So the person receiving the call, the person pretending to be the prospect, is allowed to interrupt the caller at any time. And they'll interrupt by basically starting the call over by saying what Ryan did. Hi, this is Ryan, or hello, or whatever, just like they're answering the call. Now, a little bit more advanced tool in here is to start using more common conditional objections or weirdness on the call, like somebody receiving the call and not hearing you or listening to you and saying, who is this, what is this about? And then really what you'd want to do is start over or think about where you would be if somebody did answer that. But again, that gets into a little bit of conditional objection handling, trip ups, where we'd want to have more of a decision path in our script to know how we're actually going to handle those. So we'll kind of stay away from those today and stick with restarting at the beginning. And again, it's just about repetitions. And the reset is the prospect goes back to the beginning of the call or wherever the appropriate place would be to go in the tree or the decision tree in the call. But we'll leave that for our next one to actually go down the decision tree and handle what would be, kind of conditional objections or, preemptive objections, someone trying to interrupt your introduction.
All right. So start, stop, reset, rapid succession. And we will get into some of those trip ups because it's very important. These are going to sound and feel like real calls with real interruptions. You'll see me trip Shawn up a couple times before we get our victim on page. So start, stop, reset. It's about getting warmed up. Again, think about the choir. La 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 la. I don't know if I did a good job there. La 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 la. You're doing that before you then go into having real calls. And there's only a handful of common phrases, rebuttals, objections, brush offs that occur at each section of your framework if you set it up correctly. And that's what we'll go through today. So last slide, Shawn, and let's get into some live stuff here. I don't know if there's
the last slide's more of a wrap up for the whole entire
we'll get this thing. We'll get this at the end then. So let's get right into this. What does this look like? Okay. So Shawn and I are going to demo this so you can understand what this looks like. Again, typically this is something that we would do in the middle of a live call blitz, right? So we're going to go and carve out an hour and a half of our time with our reps. We're going to sit down in the pit or virtually, wherever you're going to do this. If you're a leader, you're going to come in and you're going to be there making calls with your reps, and you're going to stop periodically, run one of these, and then you're going to get back racking into calling. And as Shawn just mentioned, it's one section at a time. You're going to get confident. I love to start these before our sections, our call blocks, because what you'll see here is I will be harder than most any prospect you're going to face. That warm up is done. Now you go confident, ready for your first connect. So let's get started, Shawn. Hey, this is Ryan.
Let me add just one more thing to that about the coaching element of this is that when you are coaching your reps and you're doing this, remember the objective is to get better at the script, not necessarily get the meeting or so on. So while you're doing this, we want to make sure as coaches that we're telling our reps, great job. The tone was right. You did a good job, regardless if the call moves forward or not. The objective here is coaching, not getting the meetings. And that's just about being a great coach and being mindful of what you're trying to do with your reps,
So let's get into it. People will start to see how this works. This is not about trying to fake into being a hard person to get or trying to get somebody some layups for the meetings. This is legitimately rehearsing your framework. So Shawn, this is Ryan.
Hey Ryan, this is Shawn over at Phone Ready Leads. And hey, you're not expecting my call. It's the first time I tried to reach you. Do you mind if I take half a minute and I'll share with you what I'm up to today?
Hey, this is Ryan.
Hey Ryan, this is Shawn over at Phone Ready Leads, and you're not
Phone Ready what?
Call. I'm calling you from Phone Ready Leads. Do you mind if I take half a minute?
What's up?
I'll share.
What's up What's up, man?
Yeah, hey, I appreciate that. Hey, the purpose of my call today is to get some time on your calendar to introduce myself and my company at a time when I'm not calling you out of the blue. Would this time tomorrow or maybe Friday work for you?
Hey, this is Ryan.
Hey, Ryan, this is Sean over at Phone Ready Leads. And
Hey,
you know,
Sean.
hey, Ryan, how you doing this afternoon? You're not expecting my call at all. You mind if I take half a minute? I'll share with you what I'm up to.
Sure, what's up?
Well, the purpose of my call today is pretty simple. I wanted to see if I could get some time on your calendar when I'm not calling you out of the blue to introduce myself and my company. Would this time tomorrow or Friday work for you?
Hey, this is Ryan.
Hey, Ryan, this is Sean calling you from Phone Ready Leads. And
Hey, be quiet, please.
sounds like
Sorry,
my
what's
house
up?
over there. That sounds like my house over here. Hey, I know you're not expecting my call at all, just like you're not probably
Hey,
not
come on,
expecting
guys,
an
be quiet. I
interruption.
got a call over here.
Hey,
Sorry, what's up? Go ahead.
it sounds like I might have caught you at the worst time possible. You got half a minute and I'll share with you what I'm up to, or should I
Hey,
give you a
this is
call back
Ryan.
this afternoon? Hey, Ryan, this is Sean at Phone Ready Leads, and you're not expecting my call. First time I tried to reach you. Do you mind if I take half a minute and I'll share with you exactly what I'm up to today?
Okay. Hey, Sean, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
obviously.
feel warmed up. Let's make some calls.
That's right. So, if you can see in the audience that the purpose of this, if you actually saw our framework, which we didn't pull it up here, we'll pull up the reps framework, but he's sticking to the framework every time. I let him do it the first time with no interruption. You can see how it's supposed to sound. Then there's some of these very common scenarios that come up when you're making cold calls. Raise a hand in the audience. I don't know, message, put a thumbs up or something. When making calls, have you heard exactly some of those scenarios while you're getting into the call? Go ahead and thumb up or whatever, right? This is real in the chat. Bam, 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 right? These are real types of scenarios that we're trying to get them off of our this idea of a script. It exists. We have a framework, but once a call starts, where reps tend to get rattled and off script is when these forks happen. So if we rehearse them, we get confident in them. We know how to get in and get out and get back on track. And each of those sections are there. And right now, all we worked on at that section was literally just the opener. Opener, 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 opener. We just did that for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. We would get right into calling. We would let him call. He's going to get good at his opener. He's not going to drop that. And then he might struggle a little bit with his next phase. Then we would pause as a group. We would role play the opener to the phase and then start to throw in those rebuttals, get him confident, move back into calling. So you'll see how this progressed is